Okay, I'm slightly annoyed. We chatted for 10 minutes about this off pod, but we need to talk about what's just happened, and we're going to stick this in the top of the episode. So, we've got a surprise guest coming up. David, you didn't know who it was, obviously.
No.
And explain who it was and what that all sort of meant to you, so there's context when people listen to it.
Any regular listeners to the pod know that I was a massive Cure fan, and I don't want people to go, "Oh, right, he's a massive Cure fan." No, they dominated my life, and they still dominate my life.
The pictures around the house
to the extent where I'm wearing a mohair black cardigan. I'm absolutely obsessed with her music. I'm absolutely obsessed with.
You cry.
No, I need people to understand what this means. This isn't meeting Beckham. This isn't meeting. I don't know what it is. I don't know. What do you want to know?
Well, who? For a start, you haven't said who is coming on.
Well, so Joe arranged for Lol. I don't even like calling him Lol, so it feels like you need to know him. I was calling him Mr. Laurence Tolhurst, Lol Tolhurst, Mr. Tolhurst.
Who is, for anyone who doesn't know?
Who was one of the original members of The Cure, and then he left in sort of, now I'm sort of going into Mastermind. He left in sort of 1989 or something. And
round about March time.
Honestly.
And so you had your back to the camera and you turned round.
And I saw him. It's like, I can't express it. I just felt so grateful to be alive. So grateful to Joe. Honestly, I just need everyone to know that. Think of someone you admire so much in your life and times it by 1,000.
Oh, okay.
Times it by what? 1?
4.
4 times it by 4.2.
And that's what you're dealing with. So that's when you might so if you wondered why David's A, gone quiet for a bit, and B, not coping in it.
Yeah. I mean, I could have, hopefully asked decent questions, if you like, The Cure. I could have got so fucking specific. There were so many times he's talking to me and I go, I know the answer. I know. Yeah, I know what road you did. Yeah, I know everything about
that. That is the bit you needed to hide.
Yeah.
You opened strong as well with...
Did I?
Knocking on his mate's door when you were 15 or whatever. That was a strong start. But anyway, they'll hear all that in a minute. So, yeah, that's why I just thought we should give it some context.
Oh, that bit about Happy Happy Girl.
When you said it was very Cure-esque.
Yeah, and he basically said it's just horrible pasta, just shite.
He said pastiche 3 or 4 times.
It's a horrible pasty. I was going to run through all my song titles. I'm so glad I didn't.
What I wish we'd recorded was just the sheer level of insecurity you had as you came off, and we literally just kind of started chatting, and you were like, I felt like I asked too many questions that you were like very.
But I was really worried that I didn't want to annoy him. I didn't want to be a cliche. I was aware that Cure fans might listen and go, "Oh, why is he not asking us about?
James,
why can't I be you?" The fact,
all the things David said he didn't want to be. Can you put a?
I didn't want to annoy him. I didn't want to be a cliche. I was aware that Cure fans might listen and go, "Oh, why is he not asking us about? Why can't I be you?" Do you know what I thought at one point? I think I asked. So that moment when you did, I don't know, Japanese Whispers and you wrote Love Cats, was that the moment that I was like, and in my head I'm like, don't talk about Love Cats. Everyone knows about Love Cats. Let's.
How do I prove I know more than everyone else?
Let's talk about the songs most people have never heard.
Did you try and prove your knowledge to him a couple of times?
No, because I think I went the other way. I didn't want him to think I was a weirdo, and he obviously did think I was a weirdo.
Well, the audience.
But he was very
judged
polite and flipping out. I mean, the fact that he'd said, "Oh, maybe we'll do part 2 or do a Christmas edition." I was like, "Do you mean that? Do you really want to talk to me again?"
It's just a thing you say to people that are freaking you out.
Oh, flipping out.
Okay, so yeah, there's the context. Hope you enjoy the ep.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a surprise guest on Zoom. Coming soon. One of us don't know what's going on. One of us don't know what's going on. There's gonna be a surprise guest on Zoom. Coming soon. Your baby girl is coming soon. Coming soon. One of us don't know what's going on. One of us don't know what's going on. There's gonna be a surprise guest on Zoom. Yeah. Coming soon. Your baby girl is coming soon. There's gonna be a surprise guest on Zoom. Yeah. Coming soon. Yeah. Baby girl.
Did you press record?
Yeah.
Come on, let's not be like this.
I hate this.
I know, it's the worst, isn't it? Has it hung over you all day? Little bits of the day you've gone, oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, it's sort of hung over me for like a month.
Good, I'm glad it's fun.
I just don't know. I don't know.
I'm a bit gutted you haven't done more. I said to Petra, I said, oh, I can't wait for the guessing to start.
I've got an idea who it is, but I'm not going to say.
Okay. All right.
I went right up to Naomi's face and went, "Who is it?" I can't read anyone. Yeah, I'd be awful in the Traitors.
I literally just been texting my friend about the Traitors. She's just finished. She's finished it. She's bereft. You should turn round soon.
Yeah,
because that's all.
You
okay,
said
so we're
stuff
doing
to me about this.
What?
You've given me bits of information about this.
You've remembered everything, haven't you?
Yeah.
This is a surprise guest, everyone, and David doesn't know who it is, and I'm going to make him turn round in a minute. So,
But you've made this out to be such a big one.
which has made you think what?
And we're also recording this at 7:00 in the evening, which I think is a bluff. I think it was. I'd go.
Are you 100% faithful? 100% faithful.
I think I would. It made me go, oh, that's a good thing to do. Yeah, do it. Set it in the evening, record in the evening, so he thinks.
He thinks
this person's in LA or in Australia or whatever when they're absolutely not.
Petra just said, "Get in that spinny chair, David." Turn round, buddy
If
boy.
it's like someone
Turn
in my
round.
if it's someone
Turn
in my
round.
family, that's bang out of order. You should never mix roles.
Are you getting in your?
But it's Naomi. No, it wouldn't be Naomi.
So just to let everyone know, David now, so do a little screen grab. David now has his back to us, and he has a very annoyed posture. It's almost sulky, I'd say. It's fair, David. I'm just pouring myself
what
a
annoys me is that people listening to this don't know what it's like.
No, they don't know the tension.
No,
I do the first
It
two.
annoys me.
I did the first two, didn't I? Spinning round.
Oh, I don't know.
All right. Once again, don't play along at all.
Can I ask one thing?
Yeah, I won't answer.
When I turn round, have I suddenly got to be running the show and asking questions? So I've got absolutely nothing to give. So you can get my response, and that's your lot.
Well, it's the worst. This is your idea as well, the spinny chair.
You're not nervous. That's what I'm trying to work out. If this was a name and you didn't know them, you'd be nervous.
Can I say, just to counter that, I think it's because I'm not coming across nervous because I enjoy your misery so much.
No, I don't buy that because you can't hide it. If this is someone you didn't know,
You think so? You think I know?
well, I know
them.
you would. I know you would. You'd be going, "Oh bloody hell! How am I going to behave?" I know you would. Can I say something? Right.
You can say whatever you like, David.
I had a surprise guest for you today that I decided against because I thought you wouldn't be able to handle it. I was like, actually,
Can you tell me who it is then?
No.
What, in case you want to then get them on because
Yeah.
so you got that in your back pocket.
Yeah.
If I ever do anything
honestly,
bad
it's
to
a
you.
really good one. And I actually said to Petra, do you know what? I'm just not sure.
What did she say?
She was kind of like, yeah, I think you're right.
Jesus, really?
Yeah.
Do you think I wouldn't cope?
No, it
Oh
could
my
cause
God.
problems. So I decided against that. So I'm glad.
I love the way you're caveating all this. So just like basically, if I'm out of order, you consider me out of order.
Nice of you to continue with this one.
My God, I can't let this person turn up with that posture you've got on.
Do they know what they're involved in?
I think so.
I think so. Nothing straightforward. Are they there? They were just watching this, listening.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, no, joking.
Are they late?
No, it's bang on 7.
Fuck.
Are they late? Imagine if they'd come on at that point and you were saying, "Are they late?"
Who's over in LA?
Oh, now you believe it now.
No, I don't. I don't believe any of it. Is it Aisling?
Aisling B?
Might be.
Is that your final guess?
Could be. Could be Aisling B. Could be Aisling B.
Have you relaxed a bit if you're thinking it's Aisling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
12-1.
12-1, it's Aisling B.
Yeah.
Okay.
12-1 it's Aisling B. 8-1 Brett Goldstein. 8-1 Brett Goldstein.
Uh-huh.
Could be Brett. Could be Brett, actually. Yeah, it could be Brett as it goes.
A little bit more relaxation. The shoulders are dropping a little bit. Have a nice little chin wag with your old mate. All nice and relaxed.
You're too relaxed. This is no way. You're too relaxed.
I don't know why I am,
Oh,
but is that a bluff?
awful
Saying
bit of acting. Awful bit of acting. Don't know why I am.
What is real and what is not? It's all very stressful. Oh, here we go. David. Are you ready? Okay. Our guest has appeared.
Oh, fucking.
So,
I hate
hello.
this.
And David, would you like to turn round and see your guest, our surprise guest?
No. Fuck me.
I've had lots of remarks to my appearance, but never that one.
Shit.
How you feeling, David? Are you getting...
Oh wow! Wow, you have it. Thank you.
Oh my God. Oh no. Oh,
It's a good thing, David.
I don't know how to respond. Hello, Lol.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for doing this. It's very kind of you.
No, my pleasure, and it's a sensible hour as well because
Yeah, you're in Los Angeles. Is that right?
Yes. So I've been out here. They sort of left me out here about 30 years ago, and I never went home.
Oh,
So
really?
it's 11 o'clock in the morning, which is respectable. It's after Rocco clock, so I can.
Yeah. You've had your
beer.
brekkie. What's the rest? What you got?
Hang
after
on a
this?
minute.
What's
This is my evening.
Well, you went a bit quiet, David.
I was
I
literally
don't-
watching an interview with you not 24 hours ago.
Wow. Okay.
Oh
They-
my Gordon Bennett.
David is a super fan. I think. It's fair to say.
I had been forewarned. I had been forewarned. Yeah, Margie, my assistant, done due diligence, so I knew that part.
Okay, I'm really trying not to be a weirdo. That's all I'm thinking about. How do I come across as level-headed?
Just act normally,
Yeah. I don't know if you'd want that. You must have met some people in your time and gone, blimey, I'm chatting to them.
Yeah, it's funny. I was always able to pick out, famous people in strange circumstances. Like I remember seeing Dustin Hoffman in Old Bond Street walking behind a row of clothes or something, in a clothes store, so I could always do that. I don't know. A lot of the time, I never really wanted to meet my heroes too much because I was afraid that they'd be, they wouldn't be the way I thought they would be. But no, I met some people. I met just a few years ago. I met Tim Burton for the first time, and that was nice. That was nice. It was, he was the sort of person that I thought he would be, which was great.
Yeah, Laurence, Lol, I just want to say thank you. I want to give you a hug, say thank you.
Okay, we'll have a hug over the internet.
Book a plane ticket, David. Get yourself over to LA.
I grew up in Smallfield, Lol.
Oh, blimey. Okay. I know Smallfield very well.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this episode is I sort of need to spend the weekend with you more than an hour.
It's funny you should say that. I have a friend that I knew back when I lived in London for years, and we didn't see each other for years. And he said the same thing. He said, "I can't do this just on one phone call." No. He said, "We have to spend 3 days or something."
Yeah.
Smallfield. Wow. So. About what time would you have been there?
Okay, I've got this memory.
Yeah.
Okay. I lived behind Gary Biddle's house.
I was going to ask if you knew the Biddles family. Yeah.
Okay. I knocked on his door.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a memory.
Did his mum come out instead, though? Did Glenn come out instead?
No, I think his mum did.
Oh, I loved his mum. His mum's great, Ursula.
Well, I was dressed as Robert. I was 16. and I knocked on his door. I said, I'm going to knock on Gary Biddle's house. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I knocked his door and I said, "Is Gary in?"
Yeah.
He would have been like 35 or so. Yeah. But no. Oh. Yeah.
He had moved over here by that time. We sort of all moved over here roughly when we started Presents. We moved over here, and he stayed. He got married to Californian, and he stayed out here until the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, his mum, I loved his mum because his mum was so nice to me when we were kids, right? We were teenagers. I would stay at Gary's house and I'd wake up in the morning and his mum had laundered all my clothes, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah. And there was lovely breakfast for me in the morning. And Gary would come down and go, "Where's mine then, Mum?" And she'd go, "Get it yourself."
Yeah, yeah.
It was great.
So Gary, was he So he was a musician in his own right.
Yes.
And but he was a roadie for the Cure, wasn't he, in the early days?
Yeah, I mean by default, what happened? We went on the road on one of the early tours, and he said he used to work at the local record shop with Simon's brother, in Collingwood Bachelors, right?
Yeah. I know Collingwood and Bachelors.
Right, and before that was radio rentals across the side.
My mum went to school with Mr. Collingwood or Mr. Bachelor.
There was a Mr. Collingwood.
I think so.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I haven't been back to Hawley for about a million years.
Yeah.
No, so he decided he'd come on the road with us, but he didn't have any money, so he sold all his record collection to come on the road with us, and he would sleep on like one of our floors, so like in the hotel or something. He would just like keep on the floor, and then halfway through the tour, we had this other guy who went nuts and had to go off the tour. And we said to Gary, "Do you want to do it?" And he went, "Yeah, okay."
Right.
But I have to say, he was a great friend. I miss him every day. He's a lovely man, beautiful man. He was useless roadie though. Oh
Was
my
he?
God. He was
Was he?
terrible.
What do roadies really need to do well?
Yeah.
They need to provide you with lots of tea and other substances. If they get that part right, they can be shit at everything else.
Right.
We sent Gary on a sort of crash course with one of Stevie Wonder's roadies of all people,
Right.
and train him up.
And if he's crap after that, to be fair, there's not a lot of hope.
Yeah.
And he came back and he'd made this little box that tested like guitar leads. You plugged it in one end, plugged the other end to the other end, and a little green light went on. And we looked at it and we went, yeah, but you could just plug your guitar into the amp. It works. He's like, yeah, but this box does it. This box does it for you. And we'd spent all this money to train him for this box. Yeah.
I have a memory. Do you remember the Parade of Shops in Smallfield?
Sort of.
So I lived there, and I have a memory. This would have been 1984. So I was 10, walking around the corner down Plough Road.
Yes, I remember Plough Road.
Yeah, and seeing this group of blokes with big black hair walking towards me, and I ran home. And I was like, I wonder if that was you
one
lot.
of those blokes.
Yeah, then I became one. Yeah.
I imagine you were slightly less intimidating, David, somehow.
Did you have the beard as well?
No, I didn't have a beard. No, I was fresh-faced.
That's why my hair is this colour, because like when the pandemic started, I figured I'd do what everybody else was doing. Like I'd grow the pandemic beard,
Yeah.
And some people, like my
Joe,
nephew,
stayed with it.
Yeah. And some people, like my nephew
Some
Nick,
guys, it just really suits.
he looks like George V with a beard. He looks great, it works. But for me, I grew a beard out in Mirabel when we did Kiss Me, and Robert would look at me every day and go, "It just looks like you haven't washed. It just look dirty."
You can't really have a beard in the Cure, can you? Can you have a beard?
No, I had a moustache for a little while, and
Were there guidelines to be
I think there were guidelines.
well,
how big your boots had to
There's
be
one.
and things?
there's one guideline.
Oh yeah.
The Cure, if you don't like Indian food, if you don't like curry, if you don't like spicy food, you're out.
Really?
Oh really? I'm having a curry tonight, so
That's simple.
I could have been critical to the band.
Yeah.
Can I ask the sort of probably the question you've been asked a million times is how did you end up? How did the band The Cure begin?
Well, I could answer that, Joe.
Well,
Okay,
I know, but I don't want to hear it from you. I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, not the little lad stead behind it.
Well, if you had to look at my book, which you had a copy of, waving around, I met Robert when I was like 5 years old because he lived next door to my grandmother. My grandmother lived on Vicarage Lane in Hawley, and the Smiths had moved from Blackpool or somewhere to there, and his dad was working for Upjohn's in Crawley. And so they first landed in Hawley, and he lived right next door to my grandma. So I would go around to see grandma, and I would see this other little boy in the garden next to me, and I was like, oh, okay, there's another little guy, like you do when you're 5 years old. And then we got shipped off to Crawley to go to the only Catholic school, right? Because my mum was Catholic and his parents were Catholic and stuff. So I met him on the bus, and at 5 and that, you don't really go, oh yeah, I'm going to hang out with you and we're going to play guitar and you're going to play drums and that. You don't do any of that stuff. It's more about football up until about 13. And then, one day we were sitting there because we went like the whole thing from St. Francis, Notre Dame, St. Wilfrid's, and we had this class where we could just go off to the library, and we started talking about music, and I suddenly realized, oh my God, he likes the same stuff as me, like he liked Hendrix and like Captain Beefheart and stuff. So it was like that was the instinct. And I don't know, I talk about this on because I have a podcast with my friend Budgie, Curious Creatures, and we talk about this. Like when we were like teenagers, you would walk around with your greatcoat on, because everybody wore greatcoats back then from the army. Yeah, like a big long grey like woolen coat that came, was like in the war, right?
Oh right. Yeah. So you buy military shops, those.
Right, you buy the military shops, or what they call Full army surplus out here. I've forgotten the word for it in England. Anyway, so buy one of those, and underneath it you would carry your albums, right? The albums that you liked. And when you'd see somebody in the school that you thought, well, they might like the same stuff as me, you sort of open it up and flash them a copy of whatever you got there. And if they went, it was great. And if they just sort of went, then that was it. So
complex way.
That's how we started.
Yeah.
And Michael Dempsey, the same thing, and Paul Thompson. Well, Paul Thompson, we met a little later on because I went out with his sister, and then I would hang around their house, and I was kind of really interested in Paul because he played the best guitar I've ever heard of anybody. So, I went. I think me and Michael and Robert were starting to rehearse at that time, and I went back and I said, "Here, we've got to get this guy as the best guitarist in town." He's like,
really,
yeah, we have to have him. And for a long while, it kind of irked Robert because when we first started to play, people would go, "Oh yeah, you're in Paul Thompson's band," and he'd go, "It's not Paul Thompson's band."
Oh right. So you played on the little bandstand in Crawley, didn't you?
Yes. Is it still there?
No, actually, no. I think they knocked it down and sort of rebuilt something similar. Yeah.
Yeah, because Paul used to work behind that in Cloaks. You remember Cloaks, the record store?
No.
That was at the back of where the bandstand was. There's like all those shops, and they had Tesco's and all kinds. And then behind Tesco's, they had Cloaks, and he used to work in the record store. So
when was the last time you went? When was the last time you walked through Crawley town centre?
My brother, bless him, is much older than me. So, he's like in his 80s, and he still lives in Crawley. So,
does he?
Yeah. So when I go back to England, normally I go back like at least once a year, but I haven't been back since the pandemic, really.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back this year, but normally I go back and I fly to Gatwick. I was telling somebody else this story yesterday. Actually, one of my neighbours who's English as well, and I said, I always fly to Gatwick. I said, because everybody that I went to school with works at Gatwick Airport.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So I get off the plane and I see these people driving down these little trucks, that you get on, and it's the two sisters that I used to go to school with. So like, oh hello, Lol, and it's like I never left,
Yeah.
Then it's really good coming through like immigration and stuff because I became a citizen out here. So if I'm traveling on my American passport, the first thing they do is go, Mr. Tolhurst, it says you were born in the United Kingdom. And the second I say the street I was born in, they go, "Oh, local lad, off you go."
Oh,
yeah.
That's it. There's nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like mag. So I don't get back there. My brother lives sort of on the outskirts of Crawley now. So walking through the town centre, I probably haven't done for, I don't know. Michael Dempsey took me there. We had he picked me up at the airport one time, and we did a little drive through, and we went to see the Rocket and all these places and stuff. It was kind of disappointing, the Rocket, I got to tell you, because we went in there, and
there's a pub in Crawley, James.
Yes,
sure.
Crawley.
I'll Google this after all this.
I went in there, and my wife's with me. My wife's Californian, right? So we're now. I'm telling this is a great pub we used to play in, and they have this big thing every year, and all the Cure fans come from all over the world. We walk in there, and it was Sunday night, and it was like 3 blokes over half a pint of bitter each, look at their feet. And I asked Michael, "Are you going to come in?" He went, "No, I don't think so." And I went in there, and no pictures, nothing to know. But the most famous thing that ever happened to that pub.
Yeah.
And that's not being egotistical, it's just the truth. And
they do a blinded pub quiz apparently.
They do. And a cracking little curry.
And the first thing they said was, my wife had a hat on, and they said, the barman went, "You got to take that hat off in here, love." And she's like, "What? Why? What? Why have I got to take my hat off?"
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So I don't know. We stayed for about 10 minutes. Actually, it was good because it kind of reminded me of the reason why we started, because we wanted to get the hell out of there,
Yeah.
And people didn't care, people. I mean, there's still some people I know from there that cared, obviously, and Gary was one of them. But there's the late 70s in Crawley. It was full of apathetic and skinheads. That was it, right?
Mm.
So,
When you started the band, at what point did you go, I think they're quite good? Or do you never really know that moment?
it's so weird. I'm having this conversation with you today, and I had a conversation exactly the same with a friend of mine yesterday. I started writing a lot now, so I've just finished my second book because it's coming out the end of this year. And at first, when you do anything creative, I feel you think you're an imposter. It's like, oh yeah, no, nobody's going to like this. No, yeah, I'm no good. Nobody likes this. And I did a thing that I read a book by Stephen King where he wrote about it's on writing, it was called, and it was like his writing technique, right? And he said something to the effect of like, well, when you've finished what you've written, put it in a drawer somewhere and don't look at it for weeks. And then when you come back, you're going to look at it and you're going to think, it's pretty good, and you're going to take about 10% of it out. And I do that with everything. And I always remember with The Cure, like when we were doing stuff, I thought, yeah, it's good, but I don't know if anybody would like it. And then they liked it. And then when we were recording, especially for like the second album onwards, I would walk past the studio door, like, I'd take a break or something. I'd walk past the studio door. And if it took me 10 seconds or, a few bars into the song to actually know it was us, then that was the sign. That was a good sign that I was distanced from it. Like I'd hear something coming out the studio door and I think, oh, that's good. Oh, yeah, it's us. So knowing you're good or bad is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of irrelevant in a band. And the other thing about a band is you can't make a band by getting all the best people at everything. Like Journey maybe or something, or Toto, but it's not really going to work normally. It's about the chemistry every time, because it's a very unnatural situation. I spent my 20s in small spaces with like the same 4 or 5 blokes, like almost 24 hours. In fact, first time I got married, I'd been on 2 18-month back-to-back world tours, and I'd met my first wife at the beginning of that. And at the end of the 3-year period, I thought, well, we've been together a long time. I suppose I should marry you, And then I did that. And then I realized, oh my God, I don't know this person, because I hadn't been home for such a long time. So I don't know. Now I look back on it and I think it was like a whole confluence of circumstances. You have to have some luck because, there's lots of people that do things and it doesn't work. But you have to have some talent, and also you have to have some I don't know, self-awareness. If you don't have,
do you know what your bit of luck was? That what changed for you?
It's funny because a few years ago we got the Hall of Fame thing, and Robert had always been loath to mention our first like proper manager come record guy like Chris Parry, but he did. And I thought, yeah, that's right, because meeting him was our stroke of luck, because he was leaving Polydor and starting up his own label. So for a long time, we were the only band, on his label that were doing anything. The associates started to do stuff and things, but that meant we had an intermediary into the horrible music business, that we had to deal with. So me and Robert would go for meetings with him and say, Chris, we'd like to do this. How about that? How's that working? And then he'd translate it to the guys at Polydor, And I talk about that with Budgie because, the Banshees were on Polydor, but they didn't have, they were directly on Polydor, so they didn't have like an intermediary. So their experience was a lot different, than mine. We were able to be like in our own bubble for a long time, which is good and bad, But that's really what our stroke of luck was, me and Parry.
When you're in the studio writing songs, I've always wondered, do you know when you've written a song that might work, that might be liked by many? Like, can you feel it in the room, or are there lots of surprises along the way with songs?
There's a lot of surprises, and there's a lot of happy accidents. Happen. In the studio. I think when we first started, the first album, was basically our live set that we had done for like 3 years, you know, so it was fairly easy for us to do. We just went in and played. The second album was the first time that we'd sort of stretched ourselves and written stuff, you know, that was like, I don't know, had more of the flavor of what people would go to think of as Secure. I don't know. I think sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, and I don't think that you ever know what's really going to work. I mean, I can remember somewhere in there, we asked somebody to do a remix when they started to become popular, and we had Francis Kevorkian do a remix of Hot, Hot, Hot. And I remember listening to it on the bus, you know, because like Harry had said, oh, I got the mix back from this guy. And we'd never done anything like that before. You know, we were in the studio, we helped, you know, like we sat with Hedges or we sat with Phil Thornley and we listened to the mixes and stuff. And we hadn't listened to this. And, you know, I remember playing that on the bus, and Simon was beside himself because there's like this whole bass solo in there that he never, you know, like Francis just played it in because he fancied it, you know.
Yeah.
And he's like laughing, you know, like, what the hell is that? You know, where did that come from? But it kind of worked, you know, and we kind of listened, and I was thinking, yeah, this might be a you know, a dance hit, and it was. So
yeah,
I don't know that you really know. Sometimes, to me, and this is going to sound very weird, it's directly related to how much joy you have, you know,
recording it.
Yeah. You know, if you're happy and you're committed and you put everything into it, you're going to have a good record, no matter what. You know, not everybody will like it, but you're going to have a good. It's like everything you do. If you're all on board, and that was very true for The Cure, and especially like the touring stuff as well. We had pretty much the same crew working for us for years and years, like key members. In fact, I know they still do. And there was nobody like sort of clocking off at, you know, 8 o'clock in the evening going, wow, the show's started now. Now I'll make a cup of tea and have, you know, we'll play cards in the back room. Like everybody was committed to making it the best show they could do. They felt part of it. And I think if you can make people in your whatever kind of unit it is, you can make people feel that feeling, that then it's gonna be good. And it is about joy at the end of the day, even if it's, you know, happy, sad, it's still about joy.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a lot of joy doing this podcast, don't we, Joe?
Well, I can tell.
Oh, honestly,
I mean, you know,
I wake up with a skip in myself. In 10 minutes, I'll be chatting with David. Doesn't get better than that.
Can I go a bit nerdier, Joe, or are you going to just shake your head?
Yeah, I've got one question, but I'm embarrassed by it.
Go on.
I'm literally going, when can I ask this? Because it's the thing I really want to ask.
Oh, no.
I want to ask where you were born from. Where you were born. I want to ask that.
I was born in Crawley.
Yeah, where Crawley and
I was born in Farnborough by Orpington.
Okay, that makes sense then now, because that, you know, I can still pick out the accents because you sound immensely like Simon Gallup's older brothers. He has like a whole bunch of them, right? And you got these same tones in there and stuff. I mean, out here, you know, it's hard to pick out, you know, those things now and again. But like talking to you now, I can do it. So it's good.
Yeah.
I'm also slightly I feel it's in but I really want to ask about Los Angeles, because I always get quite excited when I find out someone lives in Los Angeles because it sounds magical.
Okay.
Is it magical?
It depends. For me, it has been. Yeah. I mean, I always tell people come to Los Angeles to be discovered. Yeah. You know, and sometimes they are, and sometimes the other thing happens, they're destroyed, or sometimes it's both. Yeah. You know, discovered and destroyed. I came here at I had come here in like 1981 and thought, okay, yeah, doesn't rain too much, nice weather, I like the people, they seem cool. And for a big city, you know, there's 4 million people here, but you wouldn't know it. You know, it's spread out so much that, you know, it's kind of like living in sort of like Sussex, Surrey with much better weather, you know.
There you go.
A lot of travel.
Yeah. It's zero like Hawley.
Zero like Hawley,
Yeah.
thank God for that. Yeah. No, there isn't one place. Actually, there is. There's one place, like the King's Head in Hawley.
Yeah.
There's the King's Head here in Santa Monica, about 5 miles from me, and it bears a little resemblance. It's where the Doors first played.
Oh, really?
Right.
First show.
Oh.
Okay, right, yeah. And the King played there a few years later, like a surprise lunchtime gig, which was kind of funny. Yeah, but I don't go there much. Most expat Brits end up there at some point. It's like, rites of passage. But what's it like living it? For me, I got here at a very low point in my life. I'd left the band. I'd had this big court case fighting everybody, and I got divorced, and my ex-wife ran away with my son and moved back here. And I'm like, I'm not leaving him behind. So I came here, and I had very little in lots of ways. With that court case, I don't know if you know, in London, in the High Court, you lose something like that, the judge appoints this guy a master, and he says, okay, Mr. Thomas, 75% of your income is going into the court to pay off the fees. So I got here and I had 2 pennies to rub together. What I found was a lot of love, because I knew some people, but I found like the other musicians here that knew, and I found very little judgment, just acceptance, and it made me feel really good. And so that was been my experience. So for me, even though when I go back to England, I miss people and I miss some of the things about England, and I miss some of the places, but this is home. This is really home, and this is where I was, meant to live. I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere in one place. I've lived here 27 years or so, I think, or maybe more, maybe like 29 actually, because it was 94. Yeah, so I've lived here like nearly 30 years, and I feel very comfortable here. People often say to me, "Oh, isn't it dangerous? Everybody with guns."
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? The only time I've ever seen a gun drawn, both times, it's been a copper, right? And he's drawn his gun to stop somebody doing something, whatever, And I've never seen, I say this now and it'll happen to me tomorrow. I've never seen anybody, pull a gun out in day-to-day life. It doesn't really feel like that at all. It kind of feels, in a way, it feels like London, in that London is like another big city, lots of small towns masquerading as a big city. That's the same here, I live down by the beach. Most of the time, I don't go more than about 10 miles in my area, and I know lots of people. I have a couple of friends who live further away, and I'll go and see them. But that's like being in London and going, I'm going to drive down to Hawley, and
People go, why?
I just realised I don't leave my cul-de-sac. You say that, I don't go anywhere.
I walk down to the town. I live in Brighton.
Okay.
And I walked down to the town earlier because I need to go to the bank, and I bumped into my neighbour, and we were going, "Oh, it's weird not to see you on the road." And we were sort of giggling about how we saw each other in a different place. And we sort of went, "Oh," and then I ruined at the end. I said, "Hurry back," and she just sort of, and she sort of went, "Oh,
hurry back! Don't be around anymore."
Yeah.
So I really
did you find this, right? Did you find this, like when COVID started and the whole world locked down, right? Because I'm still, I live the same kind of life I've always. I'm basically unemployable. I've lived the same kind of life for 40 years, right? So I'm, if I'm not on the road, I'm here at the house, So I know my neighbourhood in the afternoon when nobody's there,
nice.
I walk around with the dog and stuff, and and maybe I see the postman, Eric, our postman. I see him, and that's about it. When the pandemic started, I suddenly saw all my neighbours that I'd only see at the weekends, and they're all here, and they don't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're lost completely. People started making things in their garage, like, I've made a chair this week. And I'm like,
Did you say, slow down,
strange.
I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you how to enjoy the afternoons.
just enjoy the art. I mean, I have a routine and a schedule, and that's the difference, because people that didn't have somebody shouting at them going, "Oh, do this now, do that then," and it's like they don't know how to occupy their own time. Can you hear that dog in the background? There's a dog howling out here.
No.
I thought it was wolves. I'm paranoid of.
My sister said she used to see you lot in Hawley.
Yeah.
At the Railway Tavern. Do you know the Railway? Is it the Railway?
Yeah, I know
Tavern?
the Railway. Yeah.
And then I think around about, it must have been 1983, you all disappeared because of Love Cats. Was it?
Yeah.
And was it that song and that album that changed?
We Love Cats and all those singles we did at the time, The Walk and Let's Go to Bed. That was like when we finished like the fourth album, Pornography, and we'd been on tour and it had kind of destroyed us. Simon came back to Hawley and to lick his wounds or whatever, and actually Gary Biddles, again, he was the go-between.
Right.
Or Simon back into the band. He invited Simon. He said, "I'll see you down the King's Head," and then he called Robert up and said, "Oh, come down to King's Head tonight." And then the two of them were stuck in the pub together and couldn't really, avoid each other. And they got talking, and the band started up again. There was a definite change after that. That was the end of like with the Pornography. That was the end of the three-piece band.
That time, Lol, when Robert went off, did he write Let's Go to Bed and Love Cats and The Walk, that album? Was it both of you?
I did some bits and pieces like I always do, but I've written a lot about that in my new book.
Right.
Does the new book have a name?
Yes, it does, but I don't know if I should say it. It's when you see it, you'll get, oh, okay. It's kind of I will tell you this, it's a historical memoir, so it takes you through the whole time that I sort of did my stuff, but it's not necessarily just about that. It's about how it got to be that. So it's a much wider viewpoint. Because people always say, "Oh, it must have been hard to write," your memoir, because you've got to think about. And I didn't have any diaries or anything. I said, "Well, no, because I'm not a journalist, so it doesn't faze me in that way. I'm not into collecting, and I'll come to that in a minute. But it was like, how difficult is it to write a book about yourself? Really, if it's not that difficult, right?
Must be quite hard, though, to be honest.
I couldn't feel 4
to be really honest.
Yeah, okay. The first, and that's the other thing you have to do. You have to be honest. I said that to somebody else the other day, not a million miles away, who I know is writing a memoir as well. Anyway, I said, if you're honest and authentic, people will understand that. It's like music, they understand if you're trying to take them on a trip somewhere that is not really honest. So you have to be honest. And that was the hardest part of it. The first 6 months, because a friend of mine lives in New York, and he said, "You're still thinking of writing a book?" This is about 10 years ago. "You're still thinking of writing a book?" And I went, "Yeah," and he went, "Okay, well, my friend from this publishing company is coming to Los Angeles and you should meet him." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I met him, and he's still my editor today, Ben Schaefer, lovely man. So, but for the first 6 months, they would say, "Okay, send us, like 30 pages of what you got, and, we can move from there." And I would keep putting them off for the first 6 months. And then I realized, okay, I can't write the book like Pete Townsend, where he doesn't tell you, half the stuff that everybody kind of really knows. I've got to lay it all out there, no matter what. But it's how to do that. And that's the hard part. So the first part of the book, For Cured, is really the life before the cure. And that was easy because, hey, nobody else remembers it except me or Robert. It's not, or Michael. It's not going to be contested. This last part, the same thing, because it's my life after the band. The middle part, which is the cure part, was the hardest because there are a lot of train spotters out there.
Hey.
Who,
Slash
you
stalker.
don't
Nice to
see
meet
that bad. You don't see that bad. But the thing that was, was always interested me. Let me put it that way. Is how people will write to me, and I get it on social media. They write things about stuff that I was at, and they go, "Oh yes," and then this happened and that happened, and I'm like, "No, that's what you read happened,
Yeah.
but it's not my memory completely." So that's why I put that note at the beginning of Cured. Like you may have heard it went down different. This is what I remember. So that was the hardest part, but memory is a really slippy thing, because I remember my mother died when I was like in my early 20s, and I always thought I was like 21. I always tell people I was 21. I was on tour in Holland. My mom died. I was 22. I look back at the things I did, the chronology, and had a look at things. So even really, really important things like that can, lost in the, in the sands of time. So you have to reconstruct things. Also, dialogue. I would make a bet for $1 million right now, or even $1 million of your English pounds, that nobody can remember a conversation they had 40 years ago absolutely verbatim. It's not going to happen. You're going to get little bits of it and piece it together. And what I found worked is I knew how all the people, the main characters in the book spoke, because I'd grown up with them.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, what do we probably talk about then? We talked about that. How would they say it? So that was the hardest thing.
Do you have to did you get their permission, the other band members, and say, look, I'm going to talk about this, or?
No.
No.
You have your own story. You can write your own story. You just don't have to libel anybody. The other thing I found out, publishers, they get lawyers at the beginning and you go like, okay, we've read your book and you can't say this and you can't say that, right? It was actually, I thought it would be harder in America to do that. No, it's much harder in England. Libel laws in England are much harder and stuff. So they would say things like, you can't put in the book about the landlord of this pub serving you drinks when you were underage. And I said, he's probably dead now. What do you care?
He's going to hunt him down as well.
Yeah.
The only person I changed some names to protect people's reputation, I suppose, or modesty, and I did I talked about our first manager we ever had, which was Michael Dempsey's brother-in-law. And I hadn't talked to him for years. I still know Michael. I've talked to Michael all the time. But so I got his address and I sent it to him. And I said, look, this is what I'm going to write about you. Are you okay with it? And he went, yeah, it's great. Don't change anything. So that was good. So if you ask people, that the other thing is a friend of mine said, what you're going to find out is people who weren't in it will complain to you because they weren't in it. And people that were in it will complain because it's not long enough.
Right.
Or, they didn't happen. All of that happened.
I had that with Frank Skinner's autobiography.
Yeah.
Because I was, he wrote about coming back.
Did he write about you?
No. But what happened was he did his first gig back in like 15 years and I was at the gig and he writes about turning up at the gig and he talks about the other comics being there and I was stood next to Rich Wilson and he comes over and he goes, and I met this lad and I said, hello, and he said, I'm Frank, and this guy went, he said, and I'm Rich, and Frank went, and so am I, and I thought, I'm back, and I read it going, I stood right next to you.
Oh, really?
Please put me in your book.
Yeah.
Killed me.
Yeah.
So I've got a funny story about this. You just reminded me of it. A friend of mine who's a writer, and he kind of goes writes books for, like, let's say, punk icons in Southern California that may not, have got some good stories, but they may not be able to write their own book, right? And he was doing one with a very famous, I don't want to get sued, so very famous guy. And he told him this story, and he said, "That's great. That's absolutely great. That's a great story. I'm going to go and write it up now." And also, he thought to himself, I better do due diligence and go and check the story with the other 6 people that are in the story, right? And so he went round to them, saw them all, and they all said the same thing. He wasn't there. we've told him this story. He just imagines he was actually there. No, he wasn't there. It's like a story that he's co-opted.
God.
It's kind of funny how that works. For this new book, remembering that, I have to talk about that too. He said, the hardest thing was trying to become a journalist, because I'm not, and like the research and stuff that I had to do for this book, I was like, I can't do research. I bloody hate research.
Very
it's
boring.
like homework. Yeah, boring, homework. But then, I don't know if any of you have children, right?
Yeah.
It pays to have them educated, right? Because my son, he's like 31 now, right? And so I sent him to school, sent him to college, and he got a whole bunch of qualifications in creative writing and English and stuff, right?
Handy.
Very handy. So I called him up. And I said,
You owe me.
I got to do. I got to do this other book, right? And
Well, you are.
I need somebody to do the research. Yeah, okay. He said, how much am I getting paid, Dad? I said, okay, fine. No, you will get paid. No, he didn't say that. He said, yeah, I'd like to do that. And I said, okay, do me about 2 different people, different circumstances, 1,000 words each, and send it to me. Just do the research on these 2 people. And he went, okay. And he did it. He sent it to me, and I took it to my agent. And I said, we're looking for somebody to do the research on this. How about this guy? And I put it in front of him, and he read it through, and he went, yeah, great. I said, oh, well, it's my son. He said, okay, well, yeah, okay, we'll hire. So then I had to go back to Gray, my son, and go, okay, you got the gig. I said, but one thing here, even though I'm going to ask you to do something, I'm not your boss, right? I'm not your boss. You can't come to me and complain about things and that. I said, your boss is this other guy, and, but I will give you what I'd like to do. And it worked really well. And it was really, to get very Californian on it, it was a very bonding experience.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's father and son,
Yeah.
It was great.